All right, let's dive right into a story that has sent some serious shockwaves through the world of international trade. We're talking about a sudden, really massive U.S. tariff hike on Indian goods. It's a pretty complicated move with some huge consequences, and we're going to break down exactly what it all means.
It all comes down to this one pretty mind-blowing number: 50%. The United States has just announced it's jacking up tariffs on a whole range of Indian goods to 50%. And no, that's not a typo. 50%. A move that, you can imagine, sent an immediate chill through the global economy.
And just so we're all on the same page, let's be crystal clear about what a 50% tariff really means. Pretty much overnight, this makes India the most heavily taxed major U.S. trading partner in all of Asia. This isn't just some minor adjustment. It is a historic decision that completely redraws the trade relationship between the U.S. and India. So first up, the 50% tariff shock. Let's really dig into what just happened and, more importantly, why this is such a big deal.
So the announcement dropped on August 6th, but the tariffs themselves don't actually kick in until August 27th. And what that does is it creates this really tense, incredibly narrow window for diplomatic talks. For officials on both sides, the clock is seriously ticking to try and find some kind of off-ramp before the economic pain gets very real.
So, what happens when a tariff of this size hits? It's not a surgical strike, it's more like a seismic event. Let's trace the economic ripple effect and see just how it could shake the entire Indian economy.
To really get a sense of the potential damage, you have to understand how vital this trade is. The United States is India's single biggest customer for its exports, buying up 18% of everything it sells to the world. Now, that slice of the pie, that represents more than 2% of India's entire GDP. So when you threaten that relationship, the whole Indian economy feels it.
So who gets hit the hardest? We're talking about major industries like textiles and clothing, gems and jewelry, seafood, and auto parts. But here's the real story, the thing these sectors all have in common: they are all incredibly labor-intensive. And that means the impact isn't just a number on a spreadsheet, it's a direct threat to millions and millions of jobs.
The potential devastation here is just immense. For those key sectors we just mentioned, experts are predicting a collapse, a staggering 40 to 50% collapse in exports to the U.S. And why? Well, think about it. These tariffs would suddenly make Indian goods way more expensive than products from competitors right next door, like Vietnam or Bangladesh. American buyers? They'd pretty much have no choice but to start shopping elsewhere. Now, if we zoom out to the whole economy, the total hit to India's GDP could be a drop of 0.4%. I know, that might not sound like a huge number, but for a massive, fast-growing economy, shaving nearly half a percentage point off your growth, well, that is a significant blow. It really messes with the country's momentum and its ambitions on the world stage. Which, of course, leads us to the big question: why? Why would the U.S. make a move this dramatic? Well, as it turns out, there are two very different sides to this story.
Yeah, why risk shaking things up with a key strategic partner like this? You've got the official story, and then you have what the experts are saying.
Officially, the White House is saying this is a direct response to India continuing to buy oil from Russia. But a lot of trade experts, they see something else going on. They see a high-pressure tactic designed to force India back to the negotiation table, to hammer out a new trade deal that's more favorable to the U.S., and to shrink that trade deficit between them.
So how can India push back against this? Well, it's far from powerless. Let's open up India's strategic playbook and see what the options are.
India's response really has to be multi-layered. Okay, step one, the absolute #1 priority: diplomatic talks. Try to find a solution before that August 27th deadline hits. At the same time, it can work to diversify its markets, to reduce this very dependence on the U.S. It can also double down on strengthening its own domestic industries. You might have heard of the Atmanirbhar Bharat or Self-Reliant India initiative, and this fits right in. Then, on the global stage, it can rally partners at the World Trade Organization. And finally, it has some tools to manage its own currency to help make its exports a little more competitive.
Finally, let's just zoom out one last time, because this whole tariff shock, it's about so much more than just trade numbers. It's really about the bigger picture of India's place in the world.
One source put it just perfectly, saying, this isn't just a trade dispute. It's about strategic autonomy and economic sovereignty.
In other words, this is a major test of India's ability to chart its own course, to make its own foreign policy and its own economic decisions in a world that's changing really, really fast.
And so we're left with this critical question. Is this challenge going to be the wake-up call that accelerates India's big push for self-reliance? Or is this just the opening shot in what could become a much larger and much more damaging global trade standoff?